Hi there, I'm Andrew, you're watching ThatGamerAjax, and for today's video, I wanted to continue talking with some of the players that I have in my Veil of the Void campaign. Now, when it comes to learning a new tabletop game, sometimes it can be very intimidating. You have a whole new rulebook that you need to look over, you have to adjust to new systems, but I wanted to bring my players' perspectives to this, especially with the two that we interviewed for this video. Most of them told me that their primary source of tabletop experience comes from playing Dungeons and Dragons, along with just a couple of other games that our group has played in either a one-off or a one-shot. Allow me to introduce Eric and Micah, two players that I've had over the last year and a half campaign that I've been running with Veil of the Void, and they can go ahead and share their thoughts on the system as a whole and kind of what they enjoy about how Veil of the Void works compared to a system like Dungeons and Dragons. So, let's go ahead and get that interview started. Guys, how about you go ahead and introduce yourself by your name and then the character that you are playing in our campaign. And Eric, because you have the unique position of two, you could go ahead and, if you want to introduce both, you can, and put the
Throw me
status
under the
of
bus
them.
like that.
All right.
My name's Eric. Lunar, my tag's somewhere off in the technology galaxy. I played Siba up until we sacrificed him. My little tree boy, he's dead. I am currently playing Kaya Novacrona, who is a human blade dancer. Went into Art of the Spellblade. So pretty fun, and looking forward to seeing where it goes.
All right. My name is Micah, also known as Nagato throughout my whole gaming career, essentially. And I play Fenrir the Wolf, a celestial necromancer who spec'd into what's it called again, Andrew? Soul Reaver?
Yeah.
No. Yeah,
Yeah.
Soul Reaver.
Yeah. Okay, so guys, just for another little brief introduction, do you think that you could just tell me a little bit about what your general experience with tabletop games is? I know that we already spoken with Alex and Diego, and they've both been playing since they were in middle school. But I know that the two of you have a little bit less experience. So tell me what you guys have played and kind of how you got started with that.
I can start first. This one. Tabletop RPGs or tabletop gaming consisted of mostly like Yu-Gi-Oh stuff when I was really young. And as I got into high school, there was a school group that my sister created back in 2012. Yeah, around 2012. And I joined that and they wanted to play some D&D and I played like 3 games of 4th edition and then I DM'd like 2 one-shots because why not? It was just something I just did. But that's really my experience post that. After joining the group back in 2016 or 17 with Alex and Diego and a few others, it just blossomed from there, really. I really enjoy playing tabletop. I mostly played a lot of 5th edition, though. Veil was my first playing of D&D, or something tabletop that isn't D&D, minus a single one-shot here and there.
Shoot, it goes back. My first experience, I had a girlfriend back in high school, and her group of friends, they all played D&D, and she wanted me to go with her one day. Before that, I played Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, way back to Pokemon, and that was the basis of what I did for tabletop. But then, just seeing a group of people just getting around a table and telling a story. I didn't get to play a whole lot. It was like my one experience, but I think it was either in 3rd or 2.5 for D&D that I got my introduction, but never really got a chance to play. None of my friend groups played or anything, so I never got a chance to actually play up until our old group before you made your big move across the states. But other than that, I'd never gotten to really play a whole lot of tabletop. I had activities in role play. I'm going to show my age here, all the way back to the like old AOL messenger boards and stuff, getting on there and like talking and role playing. Like, I know I'm old. I'm the daddy of the group, but y'all can get over it. But, it just went way back to that. And I always wanted to have a group that I could experience stuff like that with and play. And I knew that D&D put you in that area where it was also the RPG in it. I've always loved RPG video games. I've always loved building my character and letting them expand and grow. So that was my main drive. Once
I just leave it as our old group. That's
okay.
fine.
Once he once he invited me over to join in, where I met you, like my first character, of course, had to be the Edgelord. I had to play the Edgelord Blood Hunter. I want to go back and play a Blood Hunter again, but it was an intro, and everybody's first character has to have that edgy backstory. But then after that, I made an arcane trickster, which I had a lot more fun with. He was that curious, he's never been to this world before type of person. So that was really fun for me, and it just cemented the fact that I wanted to get in and play more.
Well, so I mean, obviously, the main game that you guys have played throughout your career, when it comes to tabletop role playing games specifically, is D&D. So, like, what has been the appeal of Veil of the Void then? Like the systems, like you have skills that you can transfer from one to the other, no problem, sure, but the systems themselves play entirely differently. So, let's go ahead and just we'll bounce back to Micah first. Like, what was joining this system like, especially because you mentioned that this is like one of the first major other systems that you've tried?
Joining into Veil and playing it for the first time, I love sci-fi, right? So this game plays like a high fantasy sci-fi. So that was just two great genres in one. So I got really excited to play this genre of tabletop. And the more I got into it, the more I read, and the more I actually understood the game, it became a lot more fun and a lot more enjoyable. Where in the beginning, I was struggling. What's an auto hit, auto miss? How many dice do I roll? And getting into Veil was purely, not purely, but mostly I really liked the genre of it, and that would really skyrocket my interest into Veil whenever you introduced it to us.
And Eric, I know that I brought you into the campaign. We'd already had a couple of sessions, but you joined in relatively early. So what's the experience been like for you, and kind of what was the appeal of wanting to join into the campaign as an outsider?
Well, you've known me for a while. I've always liked Star Wars. I've always liked, go out into space, go explore. And when you told me that this game was a very sci-fi, high fantasy game, I was like, I want in. I want to go out there. I want to be that, space pirate or bounty hunter, wanting to see what could happen outside of I have a country to explore rather than I have a universe. I have somewhere that if he just decided he wanted to make a new planet, we have a new planet to go to. And sure, you got D&D has your bows, and they added in the gunslinger, so you could have firearms and whatnot. But having a sword that's just a beam of laser, like that's not a thing in D&D. That's too sci-fi. Yeah, there's supplements like they have the Star Wars 5th edition supplement and everything, but having a system that's fully built for it, having your ships, having the different races that some of them are, your standards, like you have some of the Elan, which are basically like the elves, you have your humans, but then you have these races like the forearm people.
The Corians?
Yeah, the Corians. I was wanting to say the Corrigans, and I'm like, no, that's too many. The Corians, like, you take Goro from Mortal Kombat and throw him into sci-fi, and it's just like, I'm a huge dude with 4 arms. Like, let's go.
Well, I mean, we could even just take that a step further. I mean, like, and we can talk about Fenrir as a whole. I mean, he's a Celestia. He's literally like a living embodiment of an external universe that's exploring our own in a glass casing. That's essentially how his character works.
Yeah, seeing.
Can I use my gateway in a cube to go inside of Fenrir?
I'm going to say no.
It was worth a try.
So let's also just kind of talk about like game mechanics, though, because D&D, especially, I know that it is both a strength and a criticism that I've seen just on all kinds of threads. It's just the fact that D&D 5th edition is incredibly streamlined. How do you feel that Veil compares to D&D, especially because you guys are still, like, all things considered, you're still newer into the role-playing games as a whole? Like, how was learning this game?
Learning this game was was kind of rough. As the more I got into it, it was a steep learning curve, but once you learned it, it plateaued out very nicely. And then you could really focus on the strategy. Like the crit table stuff, that was kind of hard to learn for a little bit, like how do crits work.
We're
And then
still, let's be honest, we're
it,
still learning
yeah,
that.
we still are, but with the new book and how it works and the better wording of the book seems to be a lot easier now that I've learned it, and getting royal rule clarifications are becoming easier and easier, especially with the new book. But for core mechanics compared to D&D, um, they're pretty similar. I mean, you had things like analysis and which is pretty similar to investigation. So you can take what I learned from D&D and D and apply it to this tabletop, and it comes across very well. Um, However, different things like the D6 system versus the Roll20 system, that took some getting used to. Like,
Yeah.
and it still does. And I find myself, oh no, I forgot to roll my dice. I should have rolled two extra, or I should have rolled less, or oh, I should put this aside for the auto miss. I still find myself making those issues. It's a steep learning curve, but I'm getting better and better each time we play.
Okay. And how about for you, Eric?
I personally didn't think it was incredibly hard to get into. The differences are definitely there, though. I love the D6 system. I love how your character grows, how you're not stuck. Like in D&D, you have proficiencies, and usually that's all you get. Some DMs will be like, sure, if you want to take some time to work with, a longbow or something, I'll start to give you stuff towards proficiency. Vale has a built-in system for that. If you want your character to do something, you go find what you need to do it, you work on it, and they get better at it. I think that's incredible. It allows you to take a character that may not be good at something, and they could be mediocre, they could be great. You could focus on one thing and be the best out of your entire party. The system itself isn't so much different that you have to take everything that you learned and throw it away, because a lot of the skills are like the old, are like skills from D&D. Like Micah said, like your investigation and all of that stuff can be transposed into these other skills, but there's more of them, giving more variety of things that the DM could ask for, gives them more to build on rather than just, here's your 8 things, which one do I pick? I think that's a fantastic system and gives, let alone for players, a lot of creativity, but the DM as well.
Yeah, I really like the player progression. Um, However, sometimes a player progression can be a little more skewed. It can be hard to get certain things, like Fenrir is trying to get into crafting, and crafting is only useful for that specific thing. Like something like analysis that can be used for a couple different things, more broad. But for crafting, it can take a lot longer to get that skill built up. Not impossible. It just felt like it could take a little bit longer. But also, I kind of like that because crafting is, when I think of it, is a very technical. It takes a lot of trial and error to get something built right in the real life, and that translates into Veil pretty well.
Right. And just talking on crafting, I know that like you said really early on in the campaign that like you wanted to really dive into crafting and seeing what you can make. But I know that with the initial version of the game, crafting rules weren't really laid out well. But now that we have the Reforged edition, that actually spells out so much more. And I know that I've talked
It
to you
really does.
privately that we are going to be kind of investing a lot more into this. And I guess that does actually lead me into the next question that I had for you guys is just what do you think that the system as a whole does well, and what do you think it doesn't do quite as well compared to something that might be a little bit more mainstream like Dungeons and Dragons?
Lore, 100%. Like every single piece of technology, story, character has like a paragraph of text tied to it. It's like Dark Souls items. You pick up an item, you read the item, and it tells you a cool story based on a small bit of text. But Veil takes that a step further, and the role play aspects of Veil are absolutely incredible. Like I was when I first started playing D&D, I was all about combat. Like my first character was a very first character I ever created was a fighter with a trident and a net. But going into Vale, I didn't even think about combat first. The first thing I saw was cool, celestial being. That guy is super dope. And then class second, or not class second, and then what I want him to be second, and then class third, just because the class sounded cool. So Vale does the RPG elements and the roleplay elements very, very well, and I find them extremely enjoyable.
Right. And Eric, what do you think it does well? And then we can bounce back to what you think that the system could either do better or that other systems might do a little bit better.
I gotta agree with the lore. Granted, when we started playing, it was very much on the you're the one making the lore. Like there was a little bit that we had, but it was very much issued towards homebrew and what you wanted to do with it. And I know with the new book, he's put out a galaxy map, and I think that's cool. But at the same time, I like that the DM was able to just make everything that they wanted. The creativity that's allowed in this game, because it's very story oriented and homebrew oriented, I think is really good. Like sure, in D&D you can talk with your DM and you can be like, hey, I was thinking about something like this, and then you can build it out. But with the initial rule book, we had like the basics of what we could have. We had the pistols, the swords. But if you wanted something more than that, it really pushed for that, work with your DM, or the DM is going to make something. And I love that creative part of that. I think it did really good, and not throwing everything at you and saying, here's what you have, work with this. I think it very well does the idea of, hey, DM, here's a system. Make something your players will enjoy, not just here's a module or here's this basic universe, do something with it. I really think it was very geared toward the DM letting their players explore, and not as railroady as I've seen some of the stuff in other systems try to push you towards.
Right. And I'll just say, as the GM for the campaign, that we've been playing on and off with this campaign for like a year and a half now, which to me is just honestly kind of insane that it's been lasting that long. But it's both a beauty and a curse that this game doesn't have a lot of officially published material. We don't have the modules like what Wizards of the Coast has with 5th edition, because I know the first adventure I ran was Lost Mines of Phandelver. I mean, I think that's most people's introduction to D&D 5th edition. But you don't have that when it comes to Vale. Like, it is largely up to you to create the story that you want for your players. And it is a great exercise in creative freedom. There's a lot that you can do with this system. And there are even rules that say, hey, like, fun is first and foremost for this game. Like, keep that in mind. Like, if a rule goes against that fun, you can ignore it. And I know that we've had some moments in our campaign that have, included moments like that. But I will say that if you are intimidated and trying to run your own custom campaign, this is a game that you might want to wait on for a little bit.
On that, as you said, blessing and curse, the blank slate of it isn't. I wouldn't necessarily call it a blank slate. It's a scribbled slate, if you will. There's a lot of lore to it, and as the game tells you, it's really easy to build on top of that. And the way you've done it, in a way I think this game has the potential to do, is easily one of its stronger suits. Okay. Like, just kind of repeating what you said, but like, it's really, really nice.
Okay. So let's kick it back to the very beginning of the campaign. Like, think back to when you guys first joined, and if you were going to give some advice to yourself as if brand new player starting with this brand new system, what would you tell yourself back then, and what would you tell players that might be looking into this game and if they want to give it a shot? Because I feel there's not a whole lot of sci-fi tabletop games out there, and this seems to be a really good one for encouraging growth.
I would backhand myself and tell them read the book more. Like, get a better understanding of the rules, because even now I do struggle with it since I don't have as much experience as other players do. Like, just read the book, get down and read it more, read it again. You're studying here, and it'll make combat a lot more smoother. It'll make some of the roleplay aspects more smoother, especially with skill checks. I would definitely go back and reread a lot of the rule sets, and then reread some of the spells. And I would also uh, look into how the special skills work, like your strength, dexterity, virtues. Your virtues, that's what it is. I would
Right.
tell myself to change up one virtue to make it a little bit higher to help me with my crafting idea. But since I can develop that anyway, it's not necessarily a bad thing. My character's learning as I go.
Going back, I don't know how much I would actually tell myself to do different, because I went in this with a completely open mind, and trying not to compare it to other systems like D&D. I wanted a brand new experience with it. So, I started out and I had this nice little tree person that was out to cause a little bit of chaos.
A little.
He stole a ship. He rammed that ship into another ship. And then he got us all arrested. I had to be a duke one day in my life, and I had to have my beer barrel baron. So I honestly don't know what I would go back and tell myself to do differently, but definitely for new players, the idea, and I think this goes for any tabletop, is you're all there gathered around the table to have fun, or online with, our global pandemic and everything else. Like, you're online, you're at Roll20, you're on Zoom, you're in Discord. Everybody there is to have fun. So just come to the table ready to have fun. If you're playing a new system, experiment with it, but have fun. I think Vale has a lot of opportunity to go out and explore and do the things that you want to do. So do some research, read up on the basic rules, which is a lot better now with the new rule book. We have a lot of things more clarified. We have some things that weren't as clarified, but we've gotten clarification. But yeah, just come in to have fun. Roll some dice. Everybody likes their little shiny math rocks. I love mine.
Okay, now Eric, I do have one more question. It's going to be exclusive to you on this one, because so far you are the only player in our campaign that has had a character die, and you have had to re-roll somebody and have them ready to go. What is the character creation process like for you in that case? Because you came up with Kaya relatively quickly, and I know that you've been kind of sitting on the idea for a while, ever since we found out the Blade Dancer was even going to be a thing. But just from the time that Siba died to when you brought Kaya into the campaign, like, how fast was the turnaround for you on that, especially now that you already had the experience of building a character in the game?
Well, to be completely honest, by the time Siba died, Kaya was made. It was kind of, planned on between us. Like, I was going to switch characters eventually. This just happened to not happen the way that we expected it to. But, taking a demon one-on-one felt pretty good. So, like, character creation, I also built Cinder, who was our homebrew race that I played in your one-shot. And building a character, I don't use the character sheets. I use a Word doc to write everything down. So I have everything built out in tables. So it's a little bit different for me than it would be somebody that's trying to run off of the character sheet.
I do the same thing.
I feel like it works a lot better. I can organize things the way that I want, and then I know where they are. And since you can create sections and label them, I can just click on the side to go straight to a section that I need to go to.
Okay.
But building a character just depends. If it's your first time, it might take you a little bit, because you have to transpose different numbers over. What are my starting skills? What am I going to put my starting skills into? What should my class, specialize in? And then you can go against the grain and maybe maybe you want to try to, go power virtue instead of the finesse virtue, your strength versus your dex. Do something a little off meta to your class, just so you can get some bonuses somewhere else for a different. Maybe you want to dip into a multi-class later.
I mean,
The character.
case in point, I mean, Micah is playing what's essentially a paladin class with a shotgun.
Yep. The shotgun idea came to me with I just wanted to be tanky, so the Necromancer was something I wanted because it was closest to the paladin class because it's one of my favorite classes in D&D. And the shotgun, since guns exist and we're in a sci-fi, I wanted something that was archaic in nature. So I went with an old lever action shotgun with like gold plating on it, for flavor purposes. And the shotgun has turned into be an immensely fun weapon to use, even though it's archaic and shoots, normal shotgun shells. It's not an energy weapon, but yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's against the grain is very, very easy to do in this game.
Being Vale, you could also dig into crafting and modify it to be an energy weapon or something.
Yeah. Okay, so really, I guess just like, do you guys have like any closing comments just for, if a new player happens to come across this video, what advice would you give to them? Are there any closing thoughts just on Vale as a whole that you guys would like to share?
If I were to say that, like I said earlier, read the book. Really just get down and dirty with the rule set. Learning the rules really elevates this game to like a newer plane, and every time I learn something new or something gets clarified, it really just makes the game that much more fun, whether it's beneficiary or even against me as a player. It's really, really fun. Also, this game gives you a power trip like no one's business. It really does. Like, there's some combos out there with my class, with everyone's class. It really, really gives you a power trip of like, whenever you're like, oh, I get to roll a crit, and then you roll a crit and you do, like, you instantly kill something. You're just like, oh yes, let's do that again, please. Let me do that again. And the power trip, power fantasy on this game is very, very fun. That dopamine hits different.
For new players, they find this video. One, I hope it helps influence them and want them to play. I think it's an amazing system. I think it has a lot of potential to grow and be something very nice. Like Micah said, the power trip that you can get, like my Blade Dancer, I can attack 3 times in a turn, all on different people, and just move like 18 squares in a turn by doing it. It's completely and utterly ridiculous. I can pull a sword out of a pocket, and then my next weapon can be a dagger that I just shank somebody in the side with. Like, it's ridiculous. Just the amount of stuff that you can do, being able to customize your character any way that you want. The multi-classing, the fact that you don't have to you won't take the like level 1 set of what you multi-class into. You pull the attributes from that other class for the level that you're leveling up to. Opens up a lot of potential. But in the end, new players, new DMs, because let's be real, if a DM's starting a new group this early, it's probably the first time they're DMing. Work with each other, and it'll turn out great.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you guys for taking the time to speak with me, and especially just kind of sharing your thoughts. I know that our group has really been enjoying Vale, or at least, that's what you guys have all been telling me, so unless you've been lying to me for the last year and a half.
You're the world's worst conspiracy theory.
Yeah. But I just want to say, like, I appreciate both of you as players. I know that you're both pretty vocal about what you do like about the game, and any questions that you guys have. So thank you for coming on to the channel. And yeah, guys, everybody's met my entire crew now.
So now we've heard a little bit from all the players that I have at my table, and if for some reason you missed the first part, we should have a link right around here where you can listen to my players Alex and Diego, who are a little bit more experienced with Tabletop, and they shared some of their memories with this system so far. My personal favorite being where Tabletop games were compared to pizza.
So if you like what you saw, don't forget to like, comment, and if you really enjoyed the comment, please subscribe. I really appreciate the support that you guys have given me. But until next time, see you then. Bye-bye.